Hey, this is Dave Pryor. Welcome to the LeadingAgile booth here at Agile 2018, doing interviews all week long. We're on the Facebook. Hello, the Facebook.
Hello to both of you.
Both of our parents.
Right.
So Joe Vallone's here. Joe, thanks for coming.
Dave, my pleasure.
And you are doing a talk called Business Agility with Business Accounting, or a workshop.
Innovation accounting.
Innovation accounting, sorry.
Yes, it's a workshop. Absolutely.
Okay. And this is Thursday at 2 o'clock. And we were just talking before we started, and I said, I'm really glad you're doing it. There's more stuff about accounting. It's not the sexiest thing, but it's really important. And you said...
I said, to me it is sexy. So like a lot of the people here at the Agile conferences, my undergraduate degree, my experience is as a developer.
Okay.
And then I decided to get stupid, and I went back to school after I'd been developing for 25 years and got my MBA, specifically focusing on economics and finance.
Wow.
Where we started talking about lean and the application of lean, but it was from a manufacturing context. And I thought, this is really cool. We can apply this within the Agile environment. Okay. And then other people out there, people like Don Reinertson, who wrote Principles of Product Development Flow, people like Eric Ries, who wrote The Lean Startup, started applying these same principles. So to me, it's a very sexy thing, and it's very applicable to the world that we live in today.
Okay. So how does the approach to accounting change with the way that you're encouraging people to adopt?
Right. So here's the interesting thing about this. Most companies that are doing accounting, most companies that are doing finance, are doing so based on a legacy understanding.
Yeah.
Meaning the tools that they're currently using, the formulas that they're currently using, formulas like net present value, ROI, IRR, internal rate of return, payback method, all of these things that we came out of MBA school learning about to apply to our projects.
Theoretically learning about.
For profitability, turn out to be invalid.
They were valid at a point in time.
Correct. The point in time they were valid for was for manufacturing.
Right.
Where risk,
in the 50s.
Where risk is quantifiable.
Yeah.
Right? I'm building brakes. I want these brakes that I'm building, these housings, these brake housings, to be the same as the last brake that I produced, with a defect rate over time that we can quantify to about 5%. Mm-hmm. Think about the projects and the systems we're building today. How many of those are exactly like the last system that we built?
This is the problem we all run. Like, how much am I going to make? Well, all the questions we get asked are the questions from like the 1950s. And we can't answer them anymore.
Correct. So,
but finance still needs answers because they have to run.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, forget systems for a second. Just look at an Agile transformation.
Right.
Isn't it okay for people who are financing Agile transformations or financing these large initiatives to say, I want a return on that investment, and I want to understand what that is before I put my money forward.
Okay. So before you continue, I want to add one thing. So yesterday I did an interview with Paul Ardrey, who's our CFO, and his talk at the conference is about what you have to bring to the CFO to help them understand how to split. And what you just said was something you said, like, we need to know this.
Correct.
But we didn't really get into how you're going to know that. So how can you figure that out?
So this becomes the how, and I'm going to give you an overview, but we will talk about this in great deal during the workshop on Thursday. I'm not going to give it all away, but it's going to be very hands-on, sort of training from the back of the room type stuff. So we do want people to engage. But here's the basics of what it is. Eric Ries comes along and comes up with this term that he coined called innovation accounting. Okay.
Eric Ries from the Lean Startup.
Eric Ries from the Lean Startup. So in his book, The Lean Startup, he talks about this. That's where it was first introduced. And I've sort of looked at that, and we at Scaled Agile have looked at that and said, we need to adopt this within the framework. The innovation accounting is based on lean, but it's sort of a framework in and of itself, and it generally consists of three things. It consists of a hypothesis, so scientific method, right? An MVP, so a minimum viable product. It consists of fast feedback, or what Eric talks about, which is tuning the engine. Yeah. And then there's the third component of this, which is the most important of all, which it has to do with pivot or persevere.
Yep.
So many times when people start, when companies, organizations, enterprises start down these long road of large initiatives, they believe that money allocated means money spent.
Right. It's too expensive to get out of now.
And that's not the case, right? The first thing they teach you in business school is ignore sunk costs.
Right.
And what do we all do in large organizations? We consider sunk costs, which is not what we're supposed to do. Those are the three pillars of the innovation accounting.
Okay.
Now, why is it important? Well, the minimum viable product is simply a test.
Yeah.
Do we think we're going to get the value out of this that we thought we were?
Right.
How many times does a project take longer than what we initially thought? How many times is it that we just believe if we just go another 2 weeks or another 3 weeks or something, the data is overwhelming. So the key to this, the key to the execution of this MVP is, one, it's got to be pretty strictly time boxed to a feature or a set of features.
Okay.
The bare minimum that we need to prove the hypothesis. What's the hypothesis? The hypothesis is we think we're going to be able to save money in our call center by developing a better UX.
Okay.
We think self-driving cars are going to be the way to go, and these are the sensors that we should be using. But how do we know that? We're doing something that's largely unproven.
Right.
So in order to do that, we need to come up with a different strategy of measurement. Traditional measurement is an MPV, an IRR, something along those lines. We're going to do something a little different. What we're going to do is, those are largely lagging indicators.
Yeah.
We need leading indicators. Okay. So what we're going to do in the workshop is help develop those. The problem is, leading indicators, there is no kind of one set. They are specific to the MVP you're developing. Mm-hmm. So you have to understand what the MPV is and what the leading indicators are.
Okay.
The other component of that is when we're measuring, we have to be very careful that we're not doing vanity metrics, meaning we're just measuring things that feel good. In the Agile space, we might go, well, velocity. We can see that velocity is, our teams they're doing better because their velocity is improving. Is it? Are we delivering more value? Are our customers any more happier?
I think it can be, when looked at with other things, there can be value.
Exactly.
You can't look at it by itself.
Exactly. And so in Eric Ries's book, for instance, the example that he uses is people say raw page hits. So if the page hits are increasing, therefore I'm delivering more value. Does that metric provide value? It does. There's information there.
Right.
But does it tell us whether does it prove anything? Does it tell us if we're able to pivot or persevere? And if so, when? Yeah. And so that's the type of data that we're interested in. We got to make sure the emotional component is, well, I've already invested this much in the project and I'm kind of attached to it, and we should continue down that road. So we have to make sure that we concentrate on the objective data and not bring sort of the emotional component into that.
So how does a company figure out what data to look at?
So that's the trick.
Because that's the question that always comes up. You tell me I shouldn't use old tools. What should I look at?
If you wanted to use old tools, so let's say, well, I've been using MPV for the last 15, 20 years. Okay. Fine. But use that in conjunction with something else. Okay. If you want to use that because that's what you need to know to get your project approved, cool. But be prepared that, the problem is that what people have done is they've calculated using a traditional financial indicator, like a net present value or a payback method, and the problem is that they never go back and look at the results. Right. Did I get that rate of return that I pitched to somebody else? Right. So the idea is we have these, let's call them learning milestones that occur periodically where we go back and check, are we getting the results we thought? Okay. The metric that we want to use to do that is very context dependent. Okay. There is no standardized innovation accounting metric.
Figure that out.
So we have to go through some examples about how to figure that out, and that's what we're going to study. That's what we're going to do in the workshop, is to develop those things. Now, I developed a white paper. I give some examples of how to do that in the white paper. That's on the site.
Well, so, okay, but where I was about to go with this is one of the reasons that we're doing these interviews is for the folks who aren't at the conference, can't make it to the conference.
Sure.
We want them to get a sense of what's happening, what kinds of... So the reason that I wanted for us to talk was so that people who aren't here, they can't come on Thursday.
Yeah, right.
But how can they track you down to see...
Well, if they can't come on Thursday, I want to ignore them. Yeah. I'm not going to talk to them.
Screw you.
Yeah, screw you. You're going to make it on Thursday. Go pound sand. No, absolutely. So there is several ways. So my information is in my bio.
Okay.
My Twitter feed is in my bio. I do a lot of
tweeting. And the
tweeting.
Twitter feed is Joe JV. So
Joe JV. Yep, nothing complex. I tweet a lot about economics and finance things.
Okay.
These are things that I'm passionate about because, to me, it's just amazing that, as a side note, net present value, which is sort of the gold standard of approving projects, was correlated to the market. The interesting thing is, for the last 30 years, the main component of that calculation is something called beta. It hasn't been correlated to the market activity in the last 30 years. So the calculation, so the calculation is already invalid. Well, it's not like the market does anything, but the correlation is invalid to begin with.
Yeah.
So these things that we use, which are based on discounted cash flows, has already started off as an incorrect calculation. Yeah. It's already broken.
Okay.
So we need a better way. We need a better framework, and we need to understand that the pie in the sky, like, well, if we don't do this, the money goes back into the kitty and we can use it for something else. That never happens, all right? So get that out of your head. However, what we can do is say money allocated does not equal money spent. And so if we do our leading indicators, if we do our MVP, and the data is overwhelmingly telling us we are going in the wrong direction, we can still use that money, pivot to something that is much more important, much more valuable, and still gets us a better return than if we had continued down the same road. So these are the concepts that we have to start adopting at that level. And I think, to your point earlier, I think CFOs are starting to recognize that these are really heady issues, and maybe what we've done since the 1950s is maybe not what we should be doing today for very large, complex systems that have never been built before.
Using things that didn't exist when these tools were built.
Exactly.
Okay, this is great. So they can track you on Twitter, find you on LinkedIn.
Yep, they can go to
Scaled Agile Framework as well.
ScaledAgileFramework.com or ScaledAgile.com.
Okay. Are you doing consulting, teaching? What are you doing with
all of the above.
Okay.
So I do a lot of teaching, I do a lot of consulting. I also write, my white paper is on the website, ScaledAgileFramework.com, about innovation accounting. One more shameless plug.
Sure, have at it.
Which is at the SAFE Summit in October. I'm going to do another version of this talk, which will get a little bit more in depth. So I will be at the SAFE Summit, so we can talk then too.
Awesome.
I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. All the regular social media. I don't do Instagram, but I do a lot of Twitter. And so if you've got the idea that you'd like to learn a little bit more about the economic and finance, reach out. Always happy to learn new things.
Cool. All right, dude, thanks for coming by.
Dave, my pleasure.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Keep watching all week long. We're going to be doing a couple more interviews today and more the next 2 days. So thanks.